Hello, attendees. Welcome, welcome. Our attendee count is climbing as we speak. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to give everybody just a minute or two to get out of the waiting room now that we've officially broadcasted the webinar. So welcome, welcome everyone. While you are signing in and while everybody is getting let out of the waiting room, can you all just do a hand raise? It's a function that you should be able to do if you can hear us and you can see us. All right, I got 20 out of 64 hands. I think we're okay. Not bad, not bad. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. It helps us to know and make sure everybody can see things. So thank you, team. All right, our attendee count is still climbing, so one more second to get everybody in and then we will be ready to go. Okay, up to 64, fantastic. All right, I think we are leveling off, so team, we will go ahead and get started. Hello, hello, my name is Rachel. I am one of the team members at the Petco Foundation. I am so excited that you all are here to join us today. As you probably know, this is one in a series of interactive webinars that we're hosting at the Petco Foundation as an added resource for you all with your newly adopted pets or your newly welcomed foster pets. And we're very excited that we're able to bring you some neat trainings, and today's from our Petco Positive Dog Training National Team. But before we dive in and get started, I want to introduce Suzanne Kogut, President of the Petco Foundation, just to say hey and a few words. So Suzanne, take it away.
Yep, sure. First of all, again, from all of us at the Petco Foundation, first and foremost, we want to thank everyone for fostering or adopting, especially at this time, but really anytime. We always try to share the message that really if 2% of just pet owning households would foster just one pet a year, we would end euthanasia tomorrow. And we really, when this crisis with COVID-19 began, I know we partnered with a lot of shelters around the country to get out that message and to actually, really make sure we could get new people to come in and learn about fostering. So, or adopting, either are great, but so we really do want to thank you all. If you're a first-time foster, and we do have a poll that has some questions, you guys can just fill that out anytime. It'll tell us if you're a first-time foster, a first-time adopter, or whether this is just one of many in your home like me. I do have 6 dogs and I still foster. I started fostering 3 puppies at the beginning of this, but they've now moved on. So the other thing I would say, especially if you're a first-time foster, we hope you will consider fostering in the future. And if you're a first-time adopter, maybe consider fostering in the future. I also like to tell everyone that, remember, this is not a typical time period for our animal welfare partners throughout the country. So keep in mind, I would say just be patient through this process. They may be having to really reinvent themselves as they go along. The way they usually operate, just like every business, is not the way they are operating today. So give them a little grace, give them a little patience, give them a little kindness through this time period. And also they're going to be coming up with some new ways to approach adoption and look at things online, adoption by appointment and everything else. So we're really grateful to be able to have you all have a Q&A session here with our amazing National Dog Training team, Lena Eckloff and Darius Cooper. And they're here to answer your questions and hopefully make this a really positive experience for you going forward. So without further ado, they're here. They're the ones that you're here to meet with. So I'm going to hand it over to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne and the Petco Foundation for having us. Thank you for joining our session. So we are hoping and aiming to give you some best practices, some tips and tricks to make your foster experience, or if you recently added a new family member, a little bit smoother, a smooth transition, and a quickest way to set some new routines. My name is Lena. I am here today with my coworker Darius, and we are very excited to help you on your journey. Darius and I, as you guys heard, we are part of Petco's Positive Dog Training team, where our goal is to build and strengthen bonds between humans and, of course, their furry, more specifically, their dog family members. And we do so through fun and positive education. So our mission to to reach our goal is to offer fun and educational classes that teach pet parents how dogs think, how they learn, how they communicate, and how to encourage and reward appropriate dog behaviors for real-world applications. And of course, all through positive reinforcement. So there are actually 4 areas that we would like to cover today. All of course, are part of setting routines, namely feeding, crate training, exercise, and interactions. And as Rachel said, if you have any questions, please post them in the comment box. We will do our best to address them throughout today's session. Just please bear with us. We tend to get a little bit passionate and can very easily tangent off when we speak dog, as so many of you, I'm sure. So sometimes we are going to ask us to be cued back to what we were talking about before the question was posed. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Darius, as he will start us off with some super valuable insight to feeding routines. Darius?
Fantastic. And thank you very much, Lena and team. On behalf of Petco Positive Dog Training and our nearly 3,000 trainers nationwide, thank all of you for opening your homes up at a time of need for foster dogs all across this country. Certainly, we're spending a lot more time at home. I know I am. And we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot as we go. I certainly know I'm learning a lot from my dog, Zakai. And hopefully today we're going to be able to provide you with some helpful tips that will really reinforce the bonds that you are currently building and potentially establishing with your new foster puppies. So I'm going to dive right on in. So let's talk about feeding. Feeding is something that we have to do every single day, right? So depending on the size, the age, the breed of your dog, everyone is going to have a different setup. So let's talk about different ways we can actually feed our pups. So one thing about training, one thing about feeding your dog, it is one of the highlights of the day. So making it fun, making it interactive. So if you take a look at the very top left-hand side of your screen there, those are some of my favorite slow feeders for dogs. Now, if you have a puppy or a dog who gets really excited about the food, it certainly helps to slow that process down, but also it's a great mental exercise for them as well. So again, you can find many of these products at your local Petco, but certainly a great way to keep your puppies mentally and socially engaged as well during the feeding time session. Now, depending on your house setup, you might have a nice backyard or a patio. If you're lucky enough to have a nice backyard, you can actually utilize that safe space to be able to create a fun feeding obstacle course and engagement area for your pups utilizing those interactive toys. One thing about pups and all dogs, keeping things fun and unpredictable really does help to reinforce, again, keeping them mentally and socially engaged, all while getting the nutrition that they need every single day. Now, again, if you have a backyard, I live in a condo, I don't really have a backyard, but if you do have a backyard, another great way to keep your dog stimulated and another fun way to feed them is actually taking their kibble and scattering it out throughout the backyard. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why am I throwing dog food around my backyard? This is a phenomenal way for your dogs to be able to utilize their number one powerful sense, which is their sense of smell, to be able to find their food. And again, it keeps their brains working at a time where they're probably not getting the same amount of exercise that they would if of course we were in our normal situation. So again, scattering the treats and creating a fun little treasure hunt around the backyard, and you can actually even do this inside of your home as well. Now, of course, feeding time for me in this household with my dog Zakai is our training time. It's a phenomenal way to not only establish new behaviors, but also we have a lot of time right now with our pets to actually brush up on old ones, right? So feeding time is a phenomenal way to train your dog. So I actually get asked the question quite often as a dog trainer, how often should I be training my dog? You know, some people ask, should I be training him 3 to 4 hours a day? And in actuality, I train maybe once or twice a day with a couple little sessions here and there, but I primarily do a lot of my training around Zakai's feeding time. And I utilize his food that he gets on a day-to-day basis, but also too, by utilizing your dog's food during training time, it also allows for you do somewhat of a calorie count, because we know too much treats and a lot of food can certainly impact the dog's physical appearance, but also how they feel as well. So another thing I wanted to kind of show you and talk to you guys a little bit about, there are many different ways you can actually interact and utilize interactive feedings with your dogs that will not cost you a thing. So if we take a look at the next slide, you're actually going to see some really fun and innovative ways that you can actually make homemade homemade feeding enrichment toys. So if you take a look on the left-hand side, toilet paper in the United States, it's a hot commodity. So I'm pretty sure that you guys have some extra toilet paper tubes that are laying around. You can certainly make fun different toys by putting their kibble inside. And the great thing about that is we can actually let dogs be dogs. Let them tear it up. Let them destroy it. That's another great way for them to not only release some energy, but it makes mealtime a game time and it makes it fun. And of course, I called it out earlier about that treat scatter around the backyard. So if you take a look on the right side there, you're going to see certainly a dog utilizing his sense of smell, finding the kibble in the backyard. But again, you're not limited to just doing this in your backyard. You can certainly do this inside of your house as well. You just might want to let your spouse or your kids know that there might be some dog kibbles around the house so they're not too surprised. So again, there's so many different training tips that we're going to be talking about today. And Rachel, do we have any questions coming in? I know we're going to be talking about crate training next.
Yes, crate training is up on the queue for next, but I'm going to verify there are not any questions related to feeding yet. So let's start with crate training and see if any come up. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Good, cool. Well, we do, team, have a video to introduce crate training. I think you might recognize the star of it. I'm not sure, we'll see. But do bear with us. We ran through this in our tech check, but there was a tiny bit of a delay. This will all be available to you after, and we'll include a link to this video in full in the comments as well. But it's up, so have at it, Stace.
I'm working on queuing that up for you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Darius with Petco Positive Dog Training. Today we're going to walk you through the steps on how to introduce your new puppy to the crate. So the very first step in introducing a puppy to the crate is I like to introduce them to the mat that will actually go inside of the crate first. So when her butt and her paws are on that mat, she gets the treat. So now that Malibu has a positive association with that mat, I'm going to toss a treat inside, and voluntarily she chose to go inside right after that treat. Now, if we did have a puppy who was a little bit nervous about going in the crate, I like to call this the lockout. So you take a treat or something that they really like and you put it inside the crate. Now, all the fun stuff is inside and we want to go in. So it's going to be really important that you have the right size crate for your puppy. You want to make sure that your puppy is able to stand up, turn around, and lie back down comfortably and able to exit freely. For more puppy training tips, be sure to go to our website at petco.com, book online, or sign up in store today.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stacy. And one thing I got to give shout out to our amazing technical director, Stacy, keeping us all together and broadcasting this for all of you guys. So thanks so much, Stacy.
Thank you. We're doing our best.
We're learning as we go, for sure. So friends, as you guys saw with little Malibu there, we were really focusing on the introducing of the crate to her. So the most important thing when you introduce a new puppy or dog to the crate is we want to make sure that it is a positive experience for them from the very beginning. So the very first tip that I would recommend when introducing a puppy to the crate that you didn't see in that video is you want to set up the crate before the actual puppy is introduced. And what I mean by that is when you think about when you take that crate out of the box, there's a lot of cracking and popping, and just that sound enough can be aversive or sometimes scary for a new puppy. So I recommend having the crate set up in a room without the dog inside. So that way, when the pup comes in, they're coming into somewhat of a sterile environment, and they're simply just a new object that is there. So as you guys see on your screen right now, that is obviously a pup enjoying his crate with a nice Kong there. I always recommend from the very beginning, we want to reinforce and reward small steps. So simply the dog or your puppy looking at the crate, that's an awesome opportunity for you to reinforce, whether it be every single dog has a different reinforcer. So again, some dogs might like treats, some dogs might like pets, but you could certainly reinforce every step that they make towards that crate. Now, one thing you want to make sure that you don't do is go too fast. It is so easy for pet parents and even for us trainers sometimes to really want to get to the end target goal. But again, by taking those small baby steps to where that pup is slowly taking those small steps towards the crate, in the crate, on the mat, next to the crate. Those are great ways to acclimate the dog and get them comfortable with actually being inside the crate. So let's talk about size. The most important thing about having a dog comfortable with the crate is of course, making it fun and safe for them and making sure that it's voluntarily offered as far as them going towards or in the crate. Well, you want to make sure the dog is in the crate that is the appropriate size for them. So you want to make sure they can stand up, turn around, and lie back down comfortably without being at all jammed or uncomfortable inside of the crate, of course. So that being said, I want to talk to you guys about a couple different setups. So if we head over to the next slide, you're actually going to see a couple different setups, and one is actually similar to what I had with my young puppy, Zakai. So there's a big misconception out there about crate training that, well, you just put a dog in a crate and you keep them in there for hours at a time, and that's certainly something that we're not recommending or promoting. The crate is supposed to be a fun, safe place within your home that they can call their own. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys right now, you might have some extra family members in your house right now, routines that are a little off. The crate is the one thing in the house that will always be consistent for your fur babies. So if you take a look at that setup there, you're going to actually have not only a crate, but you can even use an X pen to cordon off an area in the room. So you kind of go from a doggy studio to a doggy apartment, all in a controlled setting. And for those of you who live in an urban environment, you might not necessarily have the luxury of, even at this time, being able to leave your apartment. So again, sometimes having a potty pad or a wee-wee pad or a patch that's in there, that's also going to allow them to go to a very designated spot to go potty. So again, a lot of different variations of how you can set up your crate, but the most important thing is you want to make it fun.
Darius, we have a question in the chat that I would love to chime in and ask if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so the question is about crates. When is it okay to use a crate? The question specifically is it okay for your dog to be in it when you're home? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So like I mentioned earlier, the crate is the one thing within your household that we want to always be consistent. So you know when you've actually successfully crate trained your dog, when you have the dog roaming free within your home, and if he chooses to go in there when you're simply cooking dinner, or maybe you're sitting on the couch and he's like, well, you're kind of boring, mom and dad, I'm going to go over to my fun box, which is my crate. So depending on what you're looking to do, obviously for young puppies, it's a phenomenal way for management. Obviously we can't have our eyes necessarily on our puppies 24/7, so having a crate in the house available for them, maybe when you're cooking dinner, taking a shower, putting them in there with a nice fun treat or toy, it's certainly one of those things you want them to not associate going into the crate with you leaving. So having them in the crate when you leave to maybe go check the mail and come back, having them in the crate while you're watching a 30-minute television show, while you're sitting right next to them, and let them out again. So again, keeping it unpredictable and variable will be really helpful for the process.
Awesome, thank you so much for answering that, appreciate it. I do believe we have one more question about crate training. So I think this is kind of similar to what you just said, but I'm going to ask it anyways just to make sure. Touching on crate training for sleeping times at night, and then timeliness for introducing that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one thing, and Lena is going to be talking about this in a little while, but rest is so very important for puppies. As you parents out there might know, sometimes if you have a young toddler or a child that needs a nap, their behavior might change. Certainly dogs are the same way. So having a crate, having your puppy or dog crated at night can be a great way to keep them in a nice, cozy, quiet area without having any potential distractions or things that might startle or wake them up. So again, having them in a safe, secure area. But again, one thing I do want to call out, as much as I am a really big fan of crate training dogs and puppies, it's not for every dog. It's not for every household. But I do think there are a lot of benefits that certainly outweigh some of the opinions that are out there about crate training.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, those are the questions I'm seeing about crate training. Let me double check. Okay. Questions are answered.
Fantastic. And I'm super excited for the next couple topics. And certainly Lena has some great ways to keep your pups excited and certainly keeping their ability to say exercise during this time. Lena?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Darius. So yeah, let's talk about the importance of exercise. One thing, of course, to keep in mind is the tools that are a must, or we're told were a must to use from the shelter that you got your foster dog from, or even if you adopted a dog, make sure that you follow the directions that were given to you. And they might be something like you have to leave the leash on the dog when you bring them home at first, just so you have kind of that safety net or a handle if you need to remove the dog from a situation. Or you kind of just quickly grab them and redirect them somewhere else. Also, of course, a collar is usually something that we want to have on, and it can be with or without an ID tag, and of course, different type of leashes. Make sure that you follow the directions that were given to you. There are, of course, additional tools out there. For example, different type of harnesses. One version or a few different versions of harnesses, of course, can be the ones that help with those really enthusiastic walkers, the ones that really want to go for walks and kind of pull you along. So just make sure that you combine any additional tools with the ones that you were given or provided to you from the shelter. And of course, for dogs, although going out in the backyard can be an important part of their daily exercise, taking them out to roam around and explore for a bit can make a huge difference. So kind of imagine being stuck in your house day in and day out. Well, actually, I think we can all actually relate to that. So if we put the pandemic aside, what if you only had access to, let's say, maybe one series on Netflix or maybe only Facebook? It could be fun, but of course, in the long run, maybe it wouldn't be that much fun because you're not getting a whole lot of variety. So now imagine if you could add that second season to a series or maybe a whole new show on Netflix, or adding Instagram, Twitter, maybe videos from YouTube. This is pretty much what it's like for a dog actually going on walks. So the one thing you can do to maximize the walks is to do something that has kind of affectionately been termed or coined sniffari. So this is where the dog is allowed to set the direction, the pace, and pretty much just sniff away. And as long as they are sniffing on safe things, of course, try to avoid a dog sniffing other dogs' poop, for example. This is really what we're aiming to do. And of course, you can see all these different photos here. There is mentioned earlier, of course, when it came to feeding and scattering the kibbles, for example, or the food, that the olfactory sense for a dog may be the dominant one. And it is the sense that is first developed in puppies. So dogs, pretty much in a way, they see the world with their noses. They use it to make sense of what they are experiencing and also to navigate their environment around them. So a dog calmly sniffing and engaging with the environment while out on a walk can really tell us something about the state of the dog, that they are relaxed and comfortable. A really neat thing with sniffaris have actually shown to lower the cortisone or the cortisol, or what we call the stress hormone level in dogs. Think of it as kind of chewing gums, biting our fingernails, which of course we shouldn't be doing, or bouncing our foot. Pretty much the same thing. It's just a way to release some excess stress. And again, lower that cortisol level. For a sniffari, you need a long leash or a leash long enough to where the dog has some space to explore away from you. My personal go-to is always a 12-foot leash with my dogs. And to give you a little bit of an insight, when I adopted my white German Shepherd, she's actually on the slide, the fourth one on there on the top. We actually spent the first few months just going around the same block for every walk that we did. She was at the time a very erratic, uncomfortable, and anxious walker. But she slowly started enjoying our walks when I had her on that 12-foot leash, and I gave her time to set the pace and just really feel free to, of course, sniff whatever she wanted to. So she started really enjoying our walks, so we could actually expand to 2 or 3 blocks. And she was sniffing calmly and, of course, engaging with the environment. Well, and it pretty much lasted, like I said, for a few months, because then 4th of July came around, and of course all these scary inflatable things that made funny noises came up. So we actually scaled back to just the same block that we started off with. But like I said, Sniffaris is a really good way to mentally stimulate your dog, just like Derek said earlier with the feeding part of it. It really mentally stimulates your dog. So it really helps them more than just a physical exercise when you take them for walks. Just be aware though, sometimes sniffing can be what we call a displacement behavior. If a dog is uncomfortable or uncertain, they might try to redirect whatever is going on by actually paying attention to something else. So a very easy thing for a dog to do is start sniffing the ground. They will, however, not engage with the environment. So if you see that happening, it usually involves the dog kind of freezing, and they look, if I say, more scared than anything or more uncomfortable. But as long as they are very relaxed, have relaxed body language, and are happily sniffing around, of course, that's the benefit of actually engaging in Sniffaris. So incorporate Sniffaris into your walks to maximize your time and to really engage the dog that you're with. Also, this kind of goes back to one of the questions we had for the crate training, if it's okay to create a little bit of space between you and the dog that you have, if you can actually create them when you're home. Absolutely. Another thing, even though we feel like taking a walk is an excellent opportunity to take the dogs with us, to give them that physical and mental stimulation, it is also a really good time for you to kind of break away and actually give or create that space between you and the dog. So every now and then, take a walk on your own, or if it means you leaving the house, like Dara said, go and check the mail, maybe take the car around the block once. One of the risks if you don't create that type of space is that the dogs can actually create behaviors that might be related to a separation anxiety diagnosis. So creating that space is very healthy as well. So the next one that we wanted to cover, the next topic, is of course, when should you interact with a dog? And this is of course if it's a foster dog or if it is your own dog. And there is briefly touch on this when it comes to sleep. Dogs do need a lot of sleep during the day. Around 12 hours is usually what's recommended. For puppies and for older dogs, those hours can of course increase. So take some time to try to figure out what type of pattern the dog already has. And either if it is a foster or your newly adopted dog, just spend some time to see what type of sleep patterns do they actually show during the day. If the sleep pattern doesn't align with your schedule and your routines during the day, you can actually slowly shift it step by step. And we'll definitely go over some different type of ways that you can do it. And a good exercise to work on is something that we call a settle. And you'll definitely see the steps of these 3 easy steps up on the screens. And the really neat thing with this exercise is that it can be done while you are working or when you're watching TV, while you're reading a book. When you're having some downtime, that's of course, it really ties neatly into when should a dog actually be settling and getting into the same pattern as you have, while simultaneously you actually interacting with the dog. So what you want to do is set up a comfy area for the dog close to where you are, ideally right by your feet. And this is of course only in the beginning. The comfy area can be a blanket, a towel, or a dog bed, something that you believe that they are actually going to enjoy laying down on. You want to keep the dog on a leash in the beginning, and the leash should only be long enough to where they can comfortably reach that area that you have set up. And as you can see in the pictures, this is Kai, and I chose to work with a blanket. So that's her comfy setup. Make sure you have some treats ready. And these type of treats, since you are working on this in a very low distraction environment, you can even use the kibble that you're feeding your dog. So start off by treating or rewarding or reinforcing, whatever you want to call it, they're all the same things. But you want to reward the dog for getting close to the blanket or that comfy area. So little by little, wait for the dog to offer a sit. And of course, when the dog is on the blanket and they offer a sit, give them a few treats. And eventually, the dog will catch on and they will offer a down. So when the dog offers a down, again, give them a treat. And little by little, add the amount of time before you actually reward them for laying down on the blanket. The dog is gonna, of course, very quickly associate with laying down on that blanket. That's where all the good stuff happens. One important thing to keep in mind, since we're working on a dog to settle, we don't want to bring their energy level too high. So a simple yes, or just giving them the treat for laying on the blanket is sufficient. You don't, I know sometimes when we work with our dog and we train them, we want to make it a big party, just to really kind of encourage and have them associate that specific behavior with something really good happening. This is, again, the time that we just giving them that kibble or that treat, or if it is that the dog prefers being petted, just very long, slow strokes, but keep the energy level down. And you'll see the dog is going to start associating the comfy area or the blanket with where they actually settle. And even if it takes maybe 5, 7, 10 minutes between they actually get that treat or that reward, they will be starting, or they will be able to settle for a long period of time. This is something, for example, that I use with my dogs when we're eating dinner. They both have their dog beds that they go and lay down on, and they will stay there throughout dinner, even if by the end they only get some type of small treat. Of course, we have built up they're settled for such a long duration of time that they are willing to wait there and settle in just for that little treat by the end of it. So I will take a quick pause here and see if we have any questions before passing it back to Darius.
Well, my question is, how on earth do I get my dog to stop barking so I don't have to mute myself during this? I am just kidding. We do have a couple of questions. We had one or a couple related to leash walking, actually. I think that's kind of going back to the Snifari, so I think we'll wait and just kind of loop all those together at the end. But I am not seeing any specifically on specifically on interactions and settle.
Perfect. Okay. So then I'm going to pass it on to Darius just to kind of do a little bit of a summary for our session, and then we'll definitely go to our Q&A section.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. And so team, hopefully some of these tips that we've been talking about today have been helpful. I will tell you there was probably a theme that you heard throughout, and it was positive and it was fun. And it's so important that we utilize this time that we have with our pups to really make their lives as enriching as possible. And one thing I can tell you as someone who's been training for many years now, positive reinforcement-based training and just simply hanging out on the couch with your dog during this time really does foster that relationship with them. What you're doing as foster pet parents, you're really setting them up for an incredible life with their future forever homes. And remember, every single thing that you're doing during this time is making an impact. You're making an impact not only on that individual dog, or in many cases dogs, but you're surely reinforcing what it is that fostering means in this country. So we truly appreciate all that you guys are doing. I will tell you right now that our entire team at Petco and the Petco Foundation, we are here for you 100% every single step of the way. Obviously, these webinars have been just a really cool, fun way to interact and get to know and meet and answer a lot of your questions. But certainly we have our websites, the Petco Foundation's website, Petco's website as well, that really is there as a resource for all of you during this time.
Thank you for that summary. We have one question specifically about fostering and introducing dogs to each other. This question came from Margaret, and she's wondering how to best introduce a new dog, whether a newly adopted dog or a foster dog, to existing resident pets in the home.
Here we go. Let's see. Okay, some technical difficulties here, but I can definitely start off, and I know Darius can probably add some things also. Of course, if it is that you are fostering a dog, or even if you have adopted a dog, make sure you do follow the shelter's recommendation as far as a quarantine period. Of course, they always want to make sure that they set us up with healthy dogs. Sometimes, of course, as we know, it can be an incubation period that there are no symptoms actually showing until, of course, a few days or weeks later. So we want to make sure that we don't introduce them too early, but we can still do some work on having them getting used to each other. And getting used to each other, of course, can be just hearing each other. And as we know, dogs have a very, very keen sense of smell. So just having each other in the same house, they will be picking up on each other's scents. So first, of course, protected interaction is the best, or meet between dogs, meaning that we don't set them up to actually meet or greet nose to nose. It can be where you section off your house. For example, the X pants or exercise pants that Darius was showing during the crate training, those come in super handy to where you can actually section off your house. In the beginning, ideally have them in separate rooms. So they can kind of get used to each other's smells, each other's different type of noises they make, just being aware that there's another dog in the house. After that, of course, ideally what you want to do when you feel like they are ready, that there are not any type of extreme stress symptoms shown from either dog, what you want to do is actually start taking them out for walks, but keep a very safe distance between them. So obviously, ideally, you want to walk in what we call a neutral area. You don't want your dog that you've had at home feel like, hey, this is my route that I always walk. This is mine. I'm going to protect it from you because I feel like this is where I belong and you shouldn't be here. So kind of changing up to a new walking routine or walking routes is definitely going to help. But take them for walks. Ideally, you should have someone else with you that has one of the dogs, and of course, so you keep a distance between each other. But that way, the dogs actually learn to just kind of relax in each other's presence. So that you want to do that for some time. And I wish I could tell you do it for 10 walks, do it for 2 weeks, whatever it might be. There's no clear-cut timeline. You kind of have to play it by ear and see how the dogs are actually reacting to each other. But if you feel like they are both able to relax, think of this Nefari and how the dogs are comfortable when they can sniff around, they can engage with their environment. That's kind of the body language you want to see from both dogs, that they can actually enjoy the walks, knowing that the other dog is kind of close by, but that there's no type of posturing or anything between them. They shouldn't be freezing up when they see each other. Or, of course, there should not be any type of lunging on the leashes or anything. But after you get to a point where you feel comfortable with them, that's when you can actually take them to if you have parks that are open, take them to a nearby park, ideally without any other type of dogs, or a enclosed or fenced-in area, ideally away from your backyard, because your dog might think that that's their backyard and there shouldn't be any intruders. So again, a neutral area, fenced-in area, if it's a park, something like that. And that's where you can actually have them greet. The important thing is, I know often, and something that I mentioned earlier also, we are instructed or directed to actually leave the leashes on. If you leave the leash on, make sure you drop it. Holding the leash, for some dogs, that can actually feel like they are trapped. So if they are looking to get away from a situation, even if it comes to greeting another dog, in their mind, we have taken that option away from them. So what they think they need to do is actually fight. And it can be that they are, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a full-blown on fight that they attack each other. But dropping the leash, you give that option to the dogs that they can walk away if they feel they need to. And let them, of course, greet the way the dogs greet. What we tend to do if we have them on leash is let them come up and sniff nose to nose. We all know that that's not how dogs greet. So drop the leashes, let your dogs actually take some time just to sniff each other out. Again, going back to that sense of smell, right? That's how they really gain a lot of information about each other. And then again, play it by ear, see how they react. Keep the interactions short at first. If it's successful after 30 seconds, redirect the dogs away from each other and separate them again. The reason why we want to keep the interaction short, we don't want to push them to where they get tired. If they get tired, they can be almost like that toddler, right? That they start throwing a tantrum. And that's when we can see a lot of the bad behaviors happening. So short, sweet short sessions that we end, what we say, on a high note, that they are actually enjoying it. Separate them and then set up, of course, another meet and greet session later on. It can be, of course, during the same day, or if you want to wait a day and do it the next day, that works too. But that's kind of the steps that you want to take to introduce dogs to each other. And kind of like Darius was saying about the crate training, don't go too fast. Very easy that we think everything is okay and we let them have full access to each other. Take it step by step, very slowly. When you feel like they are okay greeting each other and actually interacting outside in a fenced-in area, that's when you can have them take turns inside in the house of actually kind of exploring and getting used to smelling it or smelling each other's smells in the house. So first let either your own dog or the newly adopted or foster dog kind of explore, put that dog away and let the other dog walk around, just again so they get used to each other's smells in the house. If everything is going well outside, that they are engaging very successfully outside, that's when you can actually let them both meet and greet inside. When you do, just make sure that you remove anything that they might actually end up fighting over, toys, any type of treats, any type of chew toys, anything that you feel like a dog might think, this is mine, I have to protect it from you. And it's only temporarily. It's not something that most of the cases, you don't have to keep those things away for forever, but just to set everyone up to be successful. Remove those things, and little by little, of course, you can add them back based on how the dogs are doing with each other in your house. So I know lots of steps, but hopefully they all make sense.
Darius, do you have anything to add to that question? I mean, Lena, I gotta say, covered it all, but I have to double check.
How do you follow up after that?
I know, it's your job, not mine.
No worries, but here's one thing that I will tell you, and this goes for all aspects. I think that was a phenomenal question as far as how to introduce the dogs, of course, and those steps were phenomenal. I heard this one said at a conference, and it was from a well-known trainer. He said, if I ever wrote a book, I'm going to call it "It Depends," because what we say in dog training quite often, it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on the dog. It depends on the history of the dog. It depends on you, the pet parent, and your emotional state. So the really cool thing about training is that, guess what? It depends. And you know, one thing that we're always going to do as trainers is set you up to be successful. And what might work for one dog might not work for the other. That's the beautiful thing about animal training. There's an art and a science to it. And once you're really able to find, you know, what works for your individual dog, that's when you really start to see those results. So, you know what? I think at the end of the day, it depends, but I think those tips are very helpful, Lena.
That's awesome. Thank you both. Our next question kind of jumps topics, and I think we'll see a little bit of that in the next 15 minutes while we get through some of these questions. And this one relates to walking. So we heard how important it is to exercise your pet and how cool snifaris can be. I know personally my dogs love those. But Stacy wrote in, and Stacy has a newly adopted dog who seems to be a little bit afraid to go out on a walk. This dog will only walk backwards, and he also gets really uncomfortable when he can't see the house. So any tips on overcoming that?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I will tell you, our dogs are forever communicating with us. They're letting us know what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with, what they like and what they don't like. Certainly having a dog trying to escape or back away from a leash, that certainly is a telltale sign. or potentially a red flag saying, hey, maybe we're going a little too fast, or going at a pace that's a little too much for the puppy. So when you think about where the dog feels uncomfortable and where they feel comfortable, I always try to say, find that line. Where is that point where your dog is like, you know what? I'm not feeling comfortable. Is it right when you leave the house? Is it when you grab the leash? Is the leash itself potentially the cue for the dog that the walk is going to happen? So therefore, they're going to start offering behaviors that say, hey, this is too much. Find exactly where that line is. And again, what this really challenges all of us as pet parents to do is we have to observe. We have to be really looking for any sign that our puppy is saying, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling comfortable. And stop. That's the most important thing. If I can give you any tips, if a dog is saying, this is too much for me, find that line and stop. That gives you an opportunity to put together a game plan. So if the line is at the front door, my dog doesn't want to go past the front door. Okay, how can I make everything before the front door and the front door something fun, something that doesn't necessarily mean that that scary walk is going to happen? As you start seeing with that mind shift of, wow, this really isn't so bad. Picking up the leash isn't so bad. Standing at the doorstep really isn't so bad. Then you can start going at the pace of the dog. It's so very easy for, again, I'm guilty of it as a trainer, sometimes wanting so much so soon. The downside is if you go too fast, especially when you're talking about a fear-based response, there can be other behaviors that could be triggered from that fear, whether it's redirected frustration or aggression, where it goes from the dog saying, you're not listening to me, you're really not listening to me, and potentially the dog escapes and runs down the street. So listen to your dogs. Go at the pace of what they're comfortable with, but also to go at the pace of what you are comfortable with. If you don't feel that you have the tools or the know-how to manage or potentially modify that dog's behavior of stress and fear, don't do it. That's the great time to reach out to a professional dog trainer or a behavior consultant, or in some cases, a behaviorist. It's very important, again, to keep in mind that puppies and all dogs, especially foster dogs, they're going through a lot of news, and we want every single new experience for them to be a positive one and a great one. And we certainly wouldn't want fallout from potentially pushing a dog too far.
Lena, anything to add to that one?
No, the only one thing I can think of course, when we do get foster dogs or adopt a dog, again, a lot of times, of course, we want to, or they are trying to make sure that we are given a healthy dog. Sometimes things don't develop for a few days. So if it's something that you think that the dog is in pain, just consult with the shelter and with the veterinarian to make sure that the dog is actually clear of any type of health-related issues. It's the only thing I can think of to add.
Thank you. That was, I think, a really important addition, so we appreciate that greatly. Our next question, I'm gonna kind of group a couple here together because there's a similar theme. And this question is about dogs warming up to you, or dogs having some sort of fear. So how do you get to the point where you can do a behavior like settle if the dog is nervous or feels a little bit of stress with you or somebody else in your home?
Yeah, absolutely. Super good questions. And I know it's a very common theme. One thing that I know is a little bit of a misconception out there is that we feel that if we, and of course we have been saying it throughout today's session also, that we want to pair behaviors with something good. So dogs create an association of, for example, in the saddle, going to a mat or going into their crate with being given a treat. The misconception out there is that if we are working with a shy dog, is that we should be delivering a treat to them, that they should come to us to get the treat, and that should, of course, in our mind, make the dog really like us because we are expecting them to associate that good treat with us. Sometimes, of course, dogs will offer behaviors just because they have no other option, and when it comes to something like food, and especially a dog that we have very little prior knowledge of, if it was a stray that was picked up off the street, of course, they're going to value food. It's something that they need to survive. So they might be, of course, kind of pushing themselves to walk up and take the treat, but at the same time, they are putting themselves in a very uncomfortable situation if one they all really want is space away from us. So the best thing to do then is actually, you can still use treats, but toss them away from you. And I know some of you are probably going to say, what? No, how is the dog going to associate tossing a treat away from me with actually being something good or building that bond with that dog? So it's all about creating options and voluntary behaviors. So we are pretty much telling the dog, and this goes back to the shy dog not wanting to leave the house also. We are pretty much telling the dog that you are in charge of what you wanted to do next. We are just going to be here and provide some really good stuff. So instead of forcing the dog to come up, and I'm saying forcing again, it's not, of course, that we're physically manipulating the dog to come up to us, but us holding a treat in our hand, giving the dog very limited amount of choice of what to do, tossing the treat away from us, in the dog's mind is actually almost a little bit like reverse psychology, right? The dog is going to be like, hey, this is pretty cool. I can make the choice of creating that space away from whoever is making me feel uncomfortable, and I still get reinforced or rewarded or treated for doing something away from that person. And very often, and sometimes quickly, the dog just being given that chance to make that choice can actually speed up the process of them bonding with you. So that's one approach that I highly recommend to try. Of course, also, unfortunately, some dogs have been through some very scary experiences in the past. And again, sometimes we have no insight to what happened to them before they were lucky enough to meet us and come into our lives. But going back to what Dara said earlier with the dog afraid of walks, try to figure out their thresholds, that kind of those invisible lines, right? And always aim to stay under them. Sometimes give a dog a few days to warm up to you. Just make sure that you provide them with everything that they need, their basic needs. So of course, they should be able to get food, water, and go outside to relieve themselves. Just take everything very nice and slow. There are of course some other tools out there that you can use just to make them feel comfortable. Something, for example, like is a diffuser with DAP. It's a dog appeasing pheromone. It can kind of just help take that edge off of their anxiousness. You can also work with a veterinarian and a behaviorist. They might be able to prescribe something, just again to kind of take that edge off. But starting off with the kind of if I say the gentlest way is just to let them create that space that they're comfortable with. It's almost like of course, all of us, we have our all personal bubbles, right? That some people will feel okay with them being inside of our personal bubbles. Others we kind of want to keep away. And of course, right now we want everyone away at 6 feet distance, right? but giving the dog a choice, even if their personal bubble is very big at the moment, that if you consistently give them the choice to actually walk away if that's what they want to do by tossing the treat away from you, they actually tend to minimize the size of their personal bubble. And don't move too quickly. Let them take their time. Just keep an eye on their body language. When they are ready for you to actually interact with them and engage with them close up, you'll know it. They'll come up and seek your contact, but let them take their time. Work on their terms, because again, sometimes we feel like we are ready. They might not be ready, and of course, kind of going back again, and I know I keep referencing back to the dog that doesn't really want to walk. A walk might not be something for that dog at that time. We associate dogs with going for walks. Again, kind of like Dare said with the crates, it's not for all dogs. Same thing with cuddling and petting and everything. Some dogs really enjoy it. Other dogs, yeah, it can be fun for a little bit. And other dogs, they are more they're more relaxed and happy when they have that distance away from you. So just work with their personalities in way as well, and just give them the time to really feel comfortable around you.
Yeah, really good stuff. And one thing that I'm a really big fan of advocating for pet parents to do, and I certainly actually do it a lot with my dog, I really reinforce the 3-second rule. And so what this does, if you are wanting to engage with your dog, I think that's why we have dogs, right? But to Lena's point, we want to make sure that it's a pleasant experience for them. So I brought my trusty little assistant here. So this is what it would look like. So if I'm sitting on my couch and my pup decides to come over and engage, I might offer a nice little pet, counting him ahead, 1, 2, 3, and stop. If my dog says, hey, I actually like that, they might kind of give me that little head nudge and try to engage more. I might offer again a little pet, and then I'll stop. And I'm allowing him to say, hey, I'm enjoying this interaction. But if at any point he's like, all right, this petting's kind of getting old, or looks away or backs away, that's my cue to stop. So little things like that really helps to reinforce trust. And of course, it does really help to reinforce advocating for how your dog is feeling, because they are living, breathing creatures just like you and I, and we have feelings as they do.
We have I'm so sorry, y'all. Hang on 1 sec. I have a barking dog in the background, and I am reinforcing when he sits next to me, but it's not always. So we do have a question that I want to pose to you all, and I know how you're going to answer it, but I think it's important to address for a wider audience. We had somebody write in and ask about using their crate as a timeout, and they have a dog that doesn't have an interest in going in the crate. And they also included the fact that they use this crate in a timeout sense too. Do you want to address that a little bit to add on crate training?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I certainly appreciate it. As I said earlier, there's a lot of misinterpretations of what the crate is really designed for. And so one thing you want to keep in mind when you think about working with dogs, there is being proactive or being reactive. The proactive approach would be okay, let's address the behavior that is deemed undesirable. So if the dog is jumping on your guest and you're saying maybe the crate is timeout, my focus would be to be proactive is let's teach the dog to not jump on the guests, right? Let's teach them to sit or teach them to down, so the timeout wouldn't even be necessary. So when you think about timeout for a dog, for me, I always think about what am I doing? And am I actually teaching the dog something? And so that's what my goal is as a trainer and as someone who really wants to see behavior, and I want to see the dog happy. Right? I would much rather see my dog enjoying and free roaming the house versus being locked in the crate for doing something wrong. Now, one thing to also keep in mind, dogs see things very black and white. So if potentially the undesired behavior, which may have been ripping up a magazine that was left on the table, and then all of a sudden we come back in 5 minutes later, we see the magazine, what just happened? And then we put the dog in the crate. 9 times out of 10, that dog is not going to associate that behavior of ripping up the magazine 5 minutes ago with being put in the crate. So kind of keep that in mind. I personally am not a big fan of putting dogs in timeout in the crate. I will say being proactive in setting your dog in the crate when they're doing actually nothing with a Kong or a chew stick, again, keeping that positive association with that treat or with that crate as well. So different perspectives, of course, on how to address it. But certainly for me, I like to make sure the crate is always a positive experience for that dog. And versus timeout, let's do something that I want to see instead, right? If I'm seeing a behavior that I don't like, what are some behaviors that I do like that I can reinforce? Because guess what? When I reinforce a behavior or reward a behavior, and if that dog finds it reinforcing, they're going to offer me that behavior 9 times out of 10 versus the undesired behavior that they offered because they got a timeout. So again, think about rewarding your dog and knowing that we can certainly get behaviors from them when we are proactive versus reactive.
Lena, anything that you would like to add to that?
No, I think there's a perfectly. The one thing I would just say that, of course, if a dog, what we would quote, misbehaves, see that as an opportunity. You know, what happened and what led to it. I think it's a lot of important information for you to gather. And what did you actually do in the situation to potentially make it happen? We tend to reinforce a lot of the behaviors that we don't necessarily like. For example, a dog jumping up on us might be cute when they're puppies. When they're 60, 80, 120 pounds, it might not be as cute. What we might have been doing, of course, especially if they were puppies, or since they were puppies, is of course patting them, thinking it's okay, right there, and then we have reinforced that behavior. As they get bigger, we might be pushing them down, telling them no. Guess what? We're still paying attention to them, so we are, in a sense, reinforcing that behavior to keep happening. Another big one is, of course, barking. If the dog is barking at something, we tend to tell them no, to be quiet, all different type of things. From a dog's perspective, very often that can sound like we are joining them in that barking session. So just really take it as a lot of information to what are you doing in that instance, and what have you been doing to potentially create that behavior happening.
Fantastic. Well, I think that was such a good note to end on, and we are right at 2:30, so we are at our time. But I'm glad that we were able to get that final piece in there about the importance of the positive interactions with pets. I know that's so much the theme that we heard throughout all of this today. So for those of you who did not get your questions answered, the Petco Positive Dog Training team has some amazing videos on some of the topics you asked about on YouTube. We've put a link to their playlist on YouTube. So these are all videos that are free and accessible at all times that you can go and check out and get some tips from the trainers about how to interact with your dog, teach behaviors, whatever it may be. Be sure to look at those. And then for those of you, we had a couple people who signed in a little bit late and you were afraid you missed something, or might just want to share this webinar with some friends who also decided to foster or adopt. PetcoFoundation.org/foster. So PetcoFoundation.org/foster. We have this webinar as well as a few other webinars that we will link there. Give us about 24 hours to get this one up, but know that that is where it will be. We'll also email a link out to all of you as well, so you can review some of this awesome information that you got today and continue to create a happy home for you and your pets. So Darius, Lena, once again, on behalf of the Petco Foundation, thank you so much for facilitating today. You were wonderful, and we were so lucky to have this time with you. And for everybody on this call who has adopted or fostered, however you have decided to save a life throughout this crisis, thank you so much for all that you do, and we wish you the absolute best with your new pets. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.